Hi there. Today we will be discussing the causes of all revolutions. The first cause of all revolutions is Enlightenment ideas. These are new and better ways of doing things. So you should be thinking about John Locke and his idea of natural rights. The fact that if your government doesn't protect your natural rights, then you have the right to alter or abolish it or to change it or destroy it, which could cause a lot of revolutions. So if your government isn't protecting your natural rights, you have the right to destroy it. Okay? Why would this make people want to change? Because maybe their government wasn't keeping them safe. Maybe their government wasn't protecting their property. And the Enlightenment ideas we've discussed would be those about natural rights, the separation of powers from Montesquieu, things like that. So the first one is Enlightenment ideas. Second one would be an unpopular method of rule. This is when people do not like the government that they currently have. So that's generally because the government isn't protecting those natural rights from the first one, from Enlightenment ideas. So the unpopular method of rule mostly that people didn't like was absolutism, because the absolute monarchs had complete or total control, and that meant that they could do whatever they wanted to whoever they wanted. And this generally affected the poorest people, and they didn't want to be affected like this. They wanted a government that kind of did things for them and protected them. So we have Enlightenment ideas and unpopular methods of rule, mostly absolutism. Third cause could be economic distress, meaning money problems. So if a government wasn't protecting, was taking everyone's taxes and spending too much money on themselves, like Louis XIV at the Palace of Versailles or something like that. When the government is taking money from people, or simply that there is a depression or a recession and people are worried about their money, this could cause them to want to change their government and possibly turn violent. So that's number 3. So we have Enlightenment ideas, unpopular method of rule, and economic distress. Fourth cause would be social injustice. This is when a group of people is being treated unfairly simply because they are a member of that group. That group could be poor people. That group could be black or white people. That group could be Christian people or Jewish people. It's any group that is treated unfairly. So if you think during the French Revolution, when the third estate is treated unfairly, they had to pay all the taxes, that could be considered a social injustice. They weren't allowed to fish on the noble's land. That could be considered a social injustice. They couldn't do that simply because they were a member of that specific group, and that could cause people to want to have a revolution. So we have Enlightenment ideas, unpopular method of rule, economic distress, and social injustice. Number 5 would be religious intolerance. Religious intolerance is very similar to social injustice. It's just based on religion. So if you are treated differently because of your Judaism or your Christianity or your Islamic faith, this would be considered religious intolerance. So you could think about why the Puritans left left England for the United States. That could be considered religious intolerance. They were not tolerated in England, and they wanted to leave to be able to practice their religion freely. So that could also make people want to have a revolution or a major change. Okay? And finally, our last thing, and probably one of the most important, is nationalism. So this is when people have pride in their nation, and because they have pride in their nation, they want to show it off and become independent. So like after the French Revolution, where the Congress of Vienna makes a lot of changes to the map of Europe, and this causes a lot of people to be put into countries that they don't want to be in. And since they're in these countries they don't want to be in, eventually they might get angry enough to possibly fight for their own independence from these other countries. Okay, so this is very important that we have nationalism. So to review, we have Enlightenment ideas, unpopular methods of rule, economic distress, social injustice, religious intolerance, and nationalism. And all these six, sometimes when they're separate or sometimes when they are combined, can cause people to fight for one of these things and cause a revolution. Okay?